Hey guys, today we're going to be look at lesson 1, identify and interpret integers, and you can find this starting on page 6 in your book. So we're looking at page 6, 7, and 8. Now, what I want you to do in these videos on Build Understanding, I want you to follow along with what I'm doing. At any point, if you're like, oh, I don't understand what she did, pause it, rewind it, and look at it again. Now, on the other side, if you're like, I think I can try this myself, go ahead and try it yourself. And then you can always play it later and see if you got the right answer. So we're going to start at the top of page 6. We're right up here. Positive numbers can be written with or without a positive sign, which is this little plus sign right here. But they are usually written without it. And that's how we normally see positive numbers. Negative numbers are always written with a negative sign, this little minus sign. And if you come look right over here, we have a vocabulary box. And it has our first 2 vocabulary words. Now you can find these 2 vocabulary words along with the rest of them for this module on our Quizlet. So the first vocab word is a positive number, is a number greater than 0, and then our second is a negative number, is a number less than 0. And that is demonstrated right here on the number line. The numbers on the left-hand side of 0 are in the red, which are negative, and the numbers on the right-hand side of 0 are blue, which are positive. And now 0 is neither negative nor positive. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at number 1. And on number 1, if you see this, it talks about the result of 3 football plays, and they're shown right here. So the first play, the offense got a 4-yard gain, which is showed with 4. The second play got a 1-yard loss, so that means they went back a yard, so that's -1. And on the third play, they got a 4-yard loss, so they went back 4 yards, which is -4. And so what we're going to do, we're going to use the table, and we're going to answer A, B, C, and D. So on A, what does 0 represent in this situation? Now, since we're talking about gaining yards or losing yards, if I stayed at 0, I wouldn't be going anywhere. So number 1, A, we'd be writing no loss or no gain. And I knew I was supposed to use the words loss and gain because if you look at the table over here, that's what we're using, gain and losses. And if I stayed at 0, I wouldn't go anywhere. Now if we look at B, B says, what do negative numbers represent in this situation? If we look up here at the table, the negative numbers, we have -1 and -4. Those represent yards lost. So we're going to write yards lost next to B. Now for C, we're doing the opposite. Instead of finding negative, we're going to do positive. So what do positive numbers represent in this situation? If you look over here at the chart, the positive numbers represent yards gained. So for C, we're going to write yards gained. Then we're going to come down here and look at this very bottom. And the bottom, what it wants us to do is find D, complete the number line. Then graph each result from the table on the number line. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the numbers up here. We have 4, -1, and -4. But before we can graph those on here, we have to write them on here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see it a little better. So I have 0, 1, and then we're going to write a 2 here. And then we have a 3. Over here, I go -1, -2, -3. I have -4 and -5. Next, so I did this part. And then I'm going to graph. So up on our graph, remember we had numbers 4, -1, and -4. So I'm going to first look at this number right here, which is 4, and I'm going to put a dot on my 4. I'm not going to put my dot up here. That's a no-go. Do not put your dot up here. You put it right on the line. Our next one is -1, and our next one is -4. And so I'm done with that problem. And we're going to go ahead and look across on page 7. Okay, on page 7, we're going to have numbers 2 and 3, and each of them have several parts to it. But before we start on those, let's look at our vocab that we have over here. We have 2 new vocab words, which you'll be able to find on Quizlet. So the first one is 2 numbers are opposites if on a number line they are the same distance from 0, but on different sides of 0. So an example of opposite would be 5 and -5, 12 and -12, -25 and +25. So basically you're just looking for, if you say a positive, you're looking for the same number in the negative. First, what we're going to do is we're going to fill out this number line. So I'm going to zoom in so we can see it a little better. And we're going to go ahead and fill it out. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then over here we have negative. The opposite of 1 is -1. The opposite of 2 is -2. The opposite of 3 is -3. The opposite of 4 is -4. And then the opposite of 5 is -5. So I completed the number line, and then we're going to graph the number -2. So this is +2, so we're going to go ahead and put our dot right over here. Right there. Okay, now we're going to look at A. And next we're going to, so we graph -2. Now we have to graph the opposite of -2. And the opposite of -2 would be +2 because both of them are 2 spots away from 0 on the number line. And now the second part of the question, so we did this part, that's done. Next part, explain how you use the number line to find the opposite. So I'm going to go ahead and put text on because it's easier to type on this. So the opposite, we're going to explain how we use -2 to find the opposite. And remember that the opposite are how far the distance something is from 0 on the number line. So -2, why? -2 and 2 are the same distance from 0, but on different sides of 0. And this explanation will work with anything when you're talking about opposites. You'll just take out the 2 and -2 and put the numbers that you're working with. Let's go down and look at B. On B, it says the integer 3 is 3 units from 0 on the number line. Which integer is also 3 units from 0 on the number line? So I look at 3, and so I'm 1, 2, 3 spots. Now I'm going to look over here, 1, 2, 3. So it is -3. And then our next question is, how is this integer related to the integer 3? -3 is the opposite of 3. And that's all there is to that problem. Now let's look down at C. How many units from 0 is 0 on the number line? Is there another 0 on the number line? No, there is not. So 0 is 0 units from 0 on the number line. That's the first part. Our next part, what is the opposite of 0? 0 is, oops, sorry. 0 is its own opposite. And now we have to explain that. There are no units. Sorry, there are no numbers that are 0 units from 0. Now that's a little bit confusing, but 0 doesn't have really, 0 is its own opposite because there's 0 is neither negative nor positive. And then let's look at D. What is the opposite of 5? So the opposite of the opposite, so the opposite of 5 is negative 5, but then we're asking the opposite of that. So we're back to 5. So 5 which they show you how it's written right up here. We're not going to go much into these double negatives make positives, and we're not going to go much into that. And now we're going to explain the reasoning why the opposite of 5 is 5. Because once you go from the opposite of 5 is negative 5, when you go back from the opposite of that is 5. So I know this because the opposite of 5 is negative 5, and the opposite of negative 5 is 5. So it's a little bit of thinking in your brain there. Okay, that's going to be the end of this video. When you come back, I have a part 2, and please click on part 2.